Welcome to Deep in the Stripes, the sickest Bengals podcast around. I am your host, Elise Jesse.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hello and welcome to Deep in the Stripes. I am your host, Elise Jesse, as I said, and we've got a very special guest for you. This is going to be, if you have been watching sports in Cincinnati for a long time, you know that this is a reunion that you didn't know you needed, but it is necessary. I am going to bring in the co-host for the day is what I'll call him, is George Vogel. We've got to bring him on in here because we got to get right to it. It's great to see your face. It's first of all, it's the first time I think I've seen you without each of us having like a beer in our hand or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. There's no doubt about that. And we can change that, but let's maybe wait a few hours.
Wait, do you still have your basketball season tickets?
Yep.
All right. Well, then I'll see you a lot again this season.
Yep. I'll see you there, and I'll be over there Friday night for the Hall of Fame banquet.
Yes.
Saturday for the football game. So, yeah, I still get over there quite a bit.
And for those of you who do not know, George Vogel was a top tier sports anchor in our city. And he is the type of, he's going to shut me down because he's so humble. He hates when people brag about him. So I already know he's going to do that. But you were just inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I am the Journalism Hall of Fame, and I am so excited for you. And I know that you were probably shocked when they told you that you were going to be inducted.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I thought I was being punked, but I wasn't.
I love that you're surprised at that stuff.
They had the banquet this week on Monday, and it's a very nice event down at Great American Ballpark. And what do they call that now? Not that it's before the Handlebar. I think it's like the Valley Sports Bar or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a great event. Curtis Fuller was the MC.
Love that. Love him.
But it was what they did was they've had this Hall of Fame for a while, but they never put any sports people in. So they're like, you know what? We should probably put some sports people in. So they put like 7 of us or maybe 9 of us in.
I noticed.
And John Fay was one of them. You know, the God, we all miss him.
He's wonderful.
Too soon, and God, I just wish he'd been here for it. But a lot of his family was there, and they were very grateful and very good, and it was good to see, John and his dear departed wife Laura both kind of honored down there at this thing. And for me, that was kind of the highlight of the night.
Yeah, for sure. He was always so gracious and so wonderful, even to me when I was first starting out in Cincinnati at the ripe age of 25. He was always just so nice. He didn't have to be, but he still was, which was really cool of him.
There was a time when I broke in where newspaper people didn't like us TV folks much.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of ugly. And then everyone started warming up to each other after a while. And then you start realizing you're all kind of in the same boat.
Right.
You're in the locker rooms after the game. You're in the press box during the game. And you're all trying to get the same job and done and a good result. So everyone, we all started getting along.
I know now it's very peaceful, I think, among the reporters and everybody. I was thinking about, because when I asked you to come on, I'm like, oh my gosh, how long have I known George Vogel? Because I interned underneath you.
Yep.
And that was in 2012, maybe 2011, something around there.
You're young. This one doesn't bother me too much. It's when the people in their 50s are like, you were on as long as I remember. It's like, man, it was probably time to retire at my age because there's a lot of people. And I'm like, wait a minute, how are you? Oh, I'm 58. I'm like, and you grew up watching me. Okay.
See, I am in that position where people like older, maybe in their 20s now, are like, oh my gosh, I used to watch you.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That is so weird. I cannot deal with that. Now I know. I remember you saying things like that, and I used to think, oh my gosh, that's got to be such a weird feeling. Yeah. And now here I am dealing with the same thing. But I still use a piece of your advice that you gave me when I was an intern. I remember because your co-anchor never learned my name. He would call me that girl. So I would not come in for my internship unless I called ahead of time and asked if you or Andy Pierce was working.
Oh yeah.
And I would not, if they were like, oh, it's the other guy, I'm like, I'm not showing up. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not coming. But every time you were working, it was like, all right, I'm going to learn something. It's going to be good. And I was in an edit bay. I think maybe like 11:30 or something at night. John Topogna was teaching me how to edit. And you walk back to the bay and you're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, learning how to edit. And you go, how old are you? And I told you my age. I was 21. And you're like, don't you have a bar to go to? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but I'm trying to learn this. And you go, and your piece of advice stuck out to me because, and I still use it today, because you said, if you want to be great on camera, you just have to learn how to talk sports like you're talking with your friend at a bar over a beer. Absolutely. That's all you got to do. And I carried that with me throughout my whole career. So good. Big time.
I taught you something.
Yeah, you did. You also taught me the art of BS, because do you remember when I don't remember what game it was, but the game was on our air and we had an hour pregame special, and poor Stephanie Bruner made us those like color coded scripts, like in the binders.
Yeah.
And we were driving to the stadium. We're almost there. And you look at me and you're like, do you have the scripts? And I go, no, I thought you had them. And we're both like, we're just going to have to BS this entire hour-long show. And poor Steph had to tell us the topic.
Yes,
do you remember that?
I felt so bad because she put so much work into that. Oh, she was ready to clobber me the next time I saw her. I did all that work, and then you leave it on your desk. Oh, that was funny. That's right. She had to tell us what graphic was coming up next. Oh,
it was so bad.
That wasn't the only time that happened. I mean, you get out there and you're alive on the air, and something like that happens, and it's just like being off like a cruise ship without a life jacket. You know what I mean? You're just out there treading water, trying to keep your head above the waves, and we did a pretty good job of it that night.
I thought so too. The big boss didn't even notice. He had no idea.
We did not sink. And I probably still owe Stephanie a bottle of something for that, because she did a great job walking us through it.
Yeah, she's like, I feel like she's the GOAT of primetime special. She's always
she really is the GOAT. She went to the Olympics, you know.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to her when she was there, and of course she did a great job, but she's top tier as far as producers go.
She probably spent too much time over there. She's speaking a lot of French now, and in the French cuisine. It's like, Steph, come on.
She's so sophisticated now.
In the Turner High School, please.
Killing her. All right, we've got like 8 million other stories that we could tell, but I feel like we would both be in hot water if we told them. So we're gonna totally stay away from some of that.
Yep.
But I do want to talk to you about the Cincinnati Bengals Chiefs game, because there were so many after the Bengals lost that game. And I mean, they had the lead in the final minute, George, you know that.
Right.
Lose the game in the final minute, and all of a sudden the sky is falling. And I don't quite feel that way.
No, I don't either. And I was a little concerned after and still a little concerned after the Patriots game. And it's like, oh my God, another season opening egg. But after that game, and it's funny, all the people, I was on a golf trip, going on a golf trip that day, and everyone's like, you know what will happen next week? They'll bounce back and play well and have a late lead and lose on the last second field goal. That's exactly what happened. We're kind of conditioned to know what this team does, and especially early in the season. But there were mistakes, and there were critical mistakes, but both sides kind of did, it's football. Those things are going to happen. That was a tough call on that fourth down that kept the Chiefs alive. Very tough call. But they played much better. They showed some growth. It looks like, the offensive line is going to be okay, which I knew. You got enough veterans on there. I'd like to see them run the ball a little better. But other than that, I mean, everything looked pretty darn good. Defensively, good effort there. And they've been in this position before. I don't like it. And it's maybe going to cost them ultimate home field advantage and things of that nature. However, this doesn't mean this team is not going to make the playoffs. It does not mean they have no chance of winning the division. I mean, Baltimore's 0-2. somehow the Steelers are 2-0 and have scored one touchdown in 2 games.
I did not anticipate the Steelers
Nobody did, especially
leading the division. I did not.
So yeah, all is not lost, and they've got a great opportunity coming up to get this thing going. And the stats and the records of Joe Burrow and Zach 2 games into the season is unbelievable. That Zach's like 1-9 and Joe's whatever 1-7 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's mind blowing. But here we are again, and to me, that doesn't mean necessarily that they suck right now. It does mean you have to look at what you're doing in August to get ready for the start of these seasons. There's something
good point.
It's not working. Zach alluded to it last year that he would look at it. He's got to look at it again.
Yeah, and I almost wonder, because you look at Jamar Chase. I know that you remember this when AJ Green and Andy Dalton were drafted together, and I remember something that stuck out to me that Marvin Lewis said throughout his tenure in Cincinnati was that they had to get AJ Green involved as early and as often as possible in order to have like a really good chance at winning. And I kind of feel the same way about Jamar Chase, but I almost kind of wonder, George, if because of the contract situation, if we are not almost seeing a ripple effect with him sitting out of training camp, because his longest catch is just for 28 yards. He's not been as productive as we would expect him to be in the first 2 games of the season.
Yes, and I would totally agree with what you said about him not being involved, now getting involved. And yeah, you're right. It's Jamar's not the same guy right now. Now he can get there in a hurry. He also doesn't have T. Higgins on the other side right now.
Right.
But that didn't necessarily slow him down a hell of a lot in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll get it going. I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about. I wish he hadn't had that meltdown. I understand he was upset. I get it. If I feel like someone's trying to hurt me, I'm going to blow a gasket too. But you don't want to hurt your team in the process of that. But I part of what made me feel like, after week 1, I had this uneasy feeling that something, it just didn't feel right. And I think that was part of it. I think part of it was, he hadn't been practicing with the team. That cloud of that contract situation's hanging over. And it does seem like there has been a ripple effect of that. And I think that is part of it. It's not all of it, but it certainly plays a part in what we've seen. A sluggish start in the first 2 weeks.
Well, I really hate that. I understand why Jamar Chase lost his cool on Sunday, but I hate that for him, because guess what? Every other team that faces the Cincinnati Bengals is going to do to Jamar Chase. They're going to try to get in his head, get under his skin, piss him off. They're going to do anything and everything in their power to throw him off of his game at this point, because these guys are pros. They're looking for anything and everything that they can do to get an advantage over the best players on the field.
Yeah, and I think what gives me hope in that regard is that Jamar has not demonstrated anything. He's always been pretty a level-headed,
pretty even keel
guy out on the field. Yeah, and he's a smart guy, so he's going to know that. And I guarantee you, Zach Taylor and the coaching staffs talked to him about that and said, "All right, buddy, you opened the Pandora's box.
Right.
You better expect more of this crap," because it worked. It worked. And so they're gonna have him right, and he's smart enough. He's gonna know, let the play do the talking. The best thing he could have done is just gotten back in the huddle and made a big play on the next one or the next one after that. And I think he's smart enough to know that, and I think they'll have him prepped and ready for that. So if he had been a problem child throughout and things like this had happened, I'd be a lot more worried about it. However, you are right. They're going to try. The opponents are going to try like hell.
100%. And here's what I did like compared, because I think that if the Bengals played the same way in week 2 that they played in week 1, I think they would have lost by 40 plus, to be honest with you. Right. Defense, they looked so much better. They looked like they were locked in. Lou Anarumo dialed up a great defense. The biggest issue that I found was, they have 4 drops in 2 games. That was an issue. The fumbling. I mean, it's just like, where are we working on ball? Are they working on ball security? Like I am just questioning that a lot right now, because I am seeing mishandling of the football, I guess, offensively from the Bengals right now.
Well, yeah, and the big one against the Patriots going into the end zone. I mean,
Yeah.
you cannot let that happen when you're down there by the goal line, and I'm sure he's heard plenty about that. But yeah, that's something they need to emphasize. I mean, Burrow lost a fumble when Sunday. That's something I'm sure they are talking about working on because the oldest stat in the NFL book is like on turnovers and whoever wins that turnover battle. And so it's huge. It is huge. It's not just lip service. And quite honestly, if it doesn't happen against the Patriots, they win that game. And the way this one turned out, if they didn't do it against the Chiefs, they win that game.
As well, that those minor mistakes could have, if they didn't commit those, they could be in a 2-0 situation right now.
Printing Super Bowl tickets.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Now they're ready to bury it. That's just how it goes.
Unfortunately, the reality right now is that they are 0-2, and yes, you said before they've been in this situation before, and that they're not completely out of the race or anything like that. There's still a lot of football to be played. But I think one thing that we do have to note is the differences between, because we have a decent sample size of them going 0-2. They went 0-2 in 2022, 2023, and now this season. Obviously, in 2022, they went on an 8-game win streak, which obviously helped them. Actually, it ended up being 10 games because they won 2 more games in the playoffs. And they had health on their side as well. In 2023, obviously, Joe Burrow was hurt and they didn't even make the playoffs. They ended with a winning record, but I mean, it's the AFC North, so none of that means anything at this point. It's like the analogy that I'm looking for. When I was younger, people would say, you can be pretty all you want, but if you're stupid, it doesn't matter. So you can be pretty all you want, but if you're stupid, it doesn't matter. And in 2024, health is a major concern. But the good thing that I'm seeing is that in 2023, they had an earlier bye. It was like week 7. But in 2022, they had a later bye, like maybe week 9, I think it was. This year, it's week 12. So they have a good area for the bye week to come in for them to get their health back, because I feel like when it's later in the season, guys are already banged up and they need more time to heal their ailments. And I feel like they will have the opportunity to maybe go on a win streak, which I think will be necessary at some point this season.
Yeah.
A significant win streak at that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. After you start 0-2, you definitely need that. And, like I said, they got a good chance coming up Monday. I kind of had them pegged for a 2-1 start. I wouldn't say best case scenario because I didn't necessarily think it was a given they would lose to the Chiefs out there because, at some point you look for the Chiefs to kind of at least come back to earth a little bit in these close games and these games at Arrowhead, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I figured they would probably be 2-1 after Monday night's game. Now it's important that they go 1-2, get that first win and roll from there because yes, they have that bye week at a great time. I think of that as like some of these SEC schedules where they play, Southwestern State in like week. Look, like before their last week, like Alabama before the Iron Bowl against Auburn, always plays somebody that they're going to annihilate, and they don't have to even play their starters much. Right. They probably play the first quarter, and that's it because you do get dinged up. I don't know how anyone at any position other than maybe place kicker and punter can last a whole season, or backup quarterback. But how do you last a whole season without some kind of injury?
I don't know.
It's like baseball catchers. I mean, at some point during the season, every catcher ends up on the injured list with something, whether, a bruise, a foul ball hits them in the neck or somewhere else where it hurts really bad. They're I don't know how any catcher could make it through a full major league season without getting on the injury list once. And I feel that about just about every player in the NFL. I mean, you're getting beat around. It's like a car wreck every Sunday.
Right. And all of these guys are, if you listen to older players or older coaches who have been in the game for a long time, they always talk about how much faster and how much bigger these guys seem to get every single year, which obviously if you are running into somebody every single week, I mean, that's going to hurt even worse, I would think.
Yeah, I remember they certain positions that the old analogy way back, this would have been 30 plus years ago, was like it's lining up at the end of your driveway and running into your garage door as hard as you can, like 100 times.
Yeah. No thanks. I'll pass.
Who's going to come out of that feeling good? So, yeah, it's amazing, and you're right. These guys are getting stronger and bigger. I think that's why, you see probably a few more injuries of guys who aren't even involved in contact. They're just going so darn fast and try to cut, and a tendon or a ligament can't handle it, and it's crazy. But that's where we are, and they're all, and better than most, in the training aspect of it, they're learning more and more as they go along too. I mean, things that they thought were good for players 20 years ago or whatever, then today it's something completely, sometimes almost the opposite of what they were doing. It's like when they used to give kids salt pills back in the 70s out on a football field on a hot day, and then it's like, no, that's the last thing you should be giving these kids. It's crazy, but that's how it is, and they're catching up to it. I don't know if you ever get all the way caught up. Major League Baseball's dealing with that, with how hard these pitchers are throwing, and all of them blowing arms out. And they're trying to figure out, and they're spinning the hell out of it now. And spin rate's a big deal, and that puts a lot of pressure on the elbow. And they're learning how to do that without tearing these guys up.
Yeah, completely. And two of the guys for the Bengals who are dinged up, which I wish that these were not the two guys who were dinged up going into week 3 against the Commanders, Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill, two of their starting defensive linemen. Those two both have hamstrings. T. Higgins has a hamstring. I don't know what's going on with the hamstring situation in Cincinnati, but two defensive tackles going against a rookie quarterback, and the Commanders are going to want to run the ball. I feel like this is going to be a very similar situation that we saw in week 1 with the Patriots, who had Jacoby Brissett starting. They wanted to run the ball. The Bengals knew that they wanted to run the ball, and the Patriots ultimately did whatever they wanted to do on the ground. I am worried for the Bengals defense and how they're going to handle. I know they brought in a couple new guys and they're, working out more. Yes. But I worry about them as far as stopping the run and also getting pressure on Jalen Davis.
Very, very valid concern. And that hurt them a little bit in Kansas City too, when those two had to go out. And I think BJ went out fairly early in that game, if I remember right. I can't remember. I remember seeing him over there and they were working on him, but I had a couple drinks during that game, so it doesn't. I could see that when I was.
You don't know the exact minute that BJ Hill went out of the game. Come on,
I would have if I were working, but I was watching the game, I promise. But that hurt him a little bit there, and you're right. That's definitely what Washington's going to try to do with Jaden Daniels back there at quarterback, who's probably going to end up being terrific when all is said and done. But, this is his 3rd NFL game. So they are going to want to establish that run with what they have. And that was the formula the Patriots used, and it worked. And it worked a hell of a lot better than I thought it would. And so I don't know what the status is. Chris Jenkins still out for a while, or is he going to be able to help? I'm not sure what's going on there.
I don't think they've released an injury report on him just yet. It would be phenomenal if he came back this week. What crisp timing if he was able to come back in week 3. But I don't think that has come out just yet. I think because obviously it's a longer week. You know how it is when they play Monday Night Football. They have Wednesday off.
Yes.
So Thursday would be their first practice of the week where they look at everything. But yeah, I think the one thing I feel like everyone is kind of underestimating Jaden Daniels, and I feel like that could be a dangerous play because Jaden Daniels is one of those guys. He played at LSU.
Yeah.
He's played in big moments. He played in front of ruckus crowds his entire college career. So to underestimate him, like I feel Jacoby Brissett was slightly underestimated, would be a dagger in their hearts in week 3.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. But yeah, you shouldn't. a team now, injuries do take their toll. And, a month ago, we thought the Bengals were set pretty well at defensive tackle, even though, DJ Reader's no longer in that mix. But it seemed like, okay, they drafted a couple guys, then both of those guys get hurt. And, they brought in Rankins, he's hurt. BJ Hill got – all of a sudden you're thin there. It's kind of like what happened to the Reds infield at the beginning of the season. It's like we got way too many infielders. Wait a minute, who's going to play second base? We're out of people. That's kind of what poor Lou Anarumo has run into here with the defensive tackle position. But even with what was going on inside of that Bengals defensive line on Sunday, Trey Hendrickson is geared up, man. He is.
My gosh.
Is he just getting better and better, or what is going? That fourth quarter he had when you're supposed to be dragging. Now the offense might be dragging too, but you're going on defense hard every play because you don't know what they're doing. Like an offensive guy can kind of take a play off because it's like, hell, we're handing off to the left here, and I don't have to bury this guy in the ground. I just got to game out of the way a little bit. Well, defensive guy doesn't know it. He's got to go hard every play. So in the fourth quarter, you got to be wearing down, and he looked like he was just – they were winding him up even more and more, and he was phenomenal. So hopefully he can get back there and make Jaden Daniels very uncomfortable and do it early and set some kind of tone. But a lot of that begins with stopping that run, and that's going to be job one when the Commanders come on the field on Monday night with their offense.
Yeah, I love when Trey Hendrickson gets into the mode that he was in on Sunday, where he is converting and he is actually turning pressures into sacks, and he just looks like it's almost like he has a motor that does not tire.
Yeah,
I don't know. And each year, it's like you expect a guy as they age to drop off a little bit, and I just haven't seen the drop off.
No,
and I don't, he's a freak in my opinion. I don't know how in the heck he is able to manage that and keep that up. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's something else. I don't know what his cardio routine is, but it's working because he is,
the air dive bike or something.
Better as the game goes on and other guys around him. And when I say around him on the offensive side of the ball, maybe they're wearing down a little bit, but he doesn't. No. He's his 50th snap is as good as his first in these games, if not better.
Well, Monday Night Football is obviously the time to shine. Do you remember back in the day when Andy Dalton was the quarterback of the Bengals, and they'd be like, "Oh no, the Bengals are entering prime time." We love Andy Dalton here, but we're not going to make him catch a stray. But we were always worried when primetime games would roll around, because once those big lights came on, like some guys shine so much brighter under the big lights, and some guys just kind of shrink.
Yes, and I don't know what that was all about. The evidence was there; it was clear. And when he came in and the Bengals drafted him, my feeling was the opposite on him, that he would shine in those moments because of the way he finished the Rose Bowl. I believe TCU was playing Wisconsin, and he was phenomenal down the stretch in that game. Yeah. You're talking a New Year's Day bowl game, pretty much the only game on in the country at that time. Everybody's off, everybody's watching. He was unbelievable, and I thought this guy is going to be money in those kind of situations. And it didn't turn out to be the case. Now, whether that was all of him, some of him, I don't know. But I do know this. If you remember how those television contracts worked for us, where those primetime games were kind of up for grabs, and WLWT always grabbed them. And so we would have those primetime games on our air doing
every time.
We'd have to stand there and talk about another primetime loss. And my buddies are texting me like, "You are the worst luck. Every time Channel 5 has a game and you're on it, they lose." And it's like, I don't have any bearing on this. I mean,
it was like the curse. Like if it was on our air, we were totally cursed. And I just knew, because we would never have a script afterwards. We just have to wing it. And it was always just, how long can Elise and George wing it talking about a loss? It has to be at least an hour, and we're just like, oh my god.
I mean, here we go. I could sit here and count probably 15 of them we had in prime time where they lost, and it's like, Oh God, that's one thing I'm glad is over, and hopefully the Bengals are putting that behind them too. It seems like they are. They're
Yeah,
performing much better in these big games, regardless of the result last week. That was a hell of an entertaining game to watch.
it was
And
big
if
time.
every game was like that, and darn near in the NFL it is. I can't believe how these games always seem to come down to those final couple of drives. But yeah, that the Bengals are, since they got 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 behind them,
Yeah.
they are better in the prime time now.
Big time. And I obviously Joe Burrow is a massive part of that. I feel like he is one of the players that absolutely shines in big
Yeah.
moments and big games. I do wonder, and I haven't asked him about this or anything, and I haven't talked to anybody really about it, but I almost sometimes wonder if he is fully healthy. Like, is the tendons in his hand,
Right.
are they fully healthy? We haven't seen a ton of explosive plays out of him. Granted, it's a very small sample size.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I need to start seeing some more explosive plays from Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I want to see T. Higgins in there. Like, I want to see what we expected to see from the Bengals at the start, which is deep shots
Yeah.
down the field, Joe Burrow taking the care of the ball a little bit better. Like, I want to see more of that from him.
Yes. And I will say I'm pleased with what I see they're getting out of these tight ends now.
Yeah.
I mean, that first half of Kansas City, that's kind of all it was, but it was working.
Yeah.
And it's good to see, not that it's, I mean, Joe's always been really good spreading the ball around and knowing where the opening's going to be. And it just seems like now that this will sound bad, but like it's like they have real tight ends now. And that's, but the
I know
last
what you mean, though.
guy injured a lot, and it just seems like it's been kind of a, Uzama was the one guy he had some chemistry with, it felt like. It feels like with this bunch, he's kind of got it all the way around now. It's like no matter who they put in there and where they are, he's able to find them and get them the ball. And I think as this season unfolds, that could be really, really big, regardless of T's health. But I think if T gets back healthy, I think Yossi Voss has shown enough that I trust him being out there in the slot. And then hopefully, as the season goes along, Jermaine Burton can get a few more of those snaps, and made an explosive play Sunday. And I thought, okay, maybe we'll see a little more of that. I think he played 10 snaps the whole game. And I'm sure some of that, rookie, doesn't know what he's doing yet, that kind of stuff, I guess. But I think those two factors could be big for him down the stretch. I just love the way when Kansas City was taking other stuff away and obviously trying to take Jamar away, he was able to go to those tight ends, quite often, and it worked.
Yeah, it reminded me of the days when Cincinnati's obviously under a totally different coaching regime, different quarterback, everything. But when Tyler Eifert was the big thing in the Cincinnati offense, and they also had AJ Green. Was Marvin Jones Jr. on the team at that point? I can't remember.
It was
Mohamed Sanu, like all those guys. Like, there are so many weapons on the field that you could utilize in such an explosive big way. And I feel like the talent has only, not to slight the other guys, but I feel like the talent has only gotten better in 2024. Right. So the talent is there. I just want to see it all come together.
Yes, and we all do. And I think there's still plenty of time for that to happen, but you don't want to rack up many more losses trying to make it happen. I mean,
Absolutely
if they
not.
get the season with 2 losses, I'd be tickled pink, and they'd be having home field advantage and everything else. That's not going to happen. But you're right. They got to get this thing rolling, and you want to see that offense maybe click just a little better. And to me, based on the past, as long as Joe stays healthy and is healthy, they'll get it together. I think they'll get their act together and still be the team we thought they were heading into this thing.
Well, and you've always been my gambling expert, George. I need to. I know you're usually a horse racing gambler, but
yeah, I don't do much sports gambling anymore if that tells you how that went.
Wait, did Lisa make you quit? I love her, by the way. She's my favorite.
Yeah. She the only time she got aggravated was of gambling is when I'm like looking at all these crazy games on a Saturday morning before college football. I'm spending an hour and a half looking for some obscure game that will give me an edge, and I never found them. I mean, I'm talking about, Navy playing somebody you've never heard of, just MAC games. I looked at all this stuff, and yeah, it's tough to beat, man. It's hard to beat those numbers, but thankfully, I never got in. Like, I've known some people who got in deep, but no, I never. It was entertainment expense for me.
Yeah,
it's like
we knew that.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend much more than I would, because if you go to a movie or something, you're probably looking, by the time you get one of those tubs of popcorn, you're $50 in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So I wouldn't want to do much more than that.
Well, who would you bet on in this game on Monday night? I think the Bengals I think it opened up as an 8-point. The Bengals opened up as an 8-point favorite. I think they're maybe 6.5 now.
If they're 7 or under, I would probably take them.
Yeah. Okay. What's your prediction? You got a score prediction?
Oh boy, I haven't thought enough about it, but I'll rip one out here. I'm gonna say I'll go 31-20 Cincinnati.
Oh, you think it's going to be a high-scoring game then?
Yes, I'm going for more points in this one because I think the Bengals will bust loose a little bit. And I would say, Sammy says the Bengals are 7.
Yeah, 7.5. Thank you, Sammy.
I hate that number. But yeah, I'll give the Bengals winning by 10. And Who Dey Nation will be happy. And they will have a lot of fun down there as they bring 2 more into the Ring of Honor.
It is. You're right. It's a Ring of Honor game, too.
Yeah, I wish Lapp was getting in. I think he'll be in the next class.
Probably. He's wonderful also.
I mean, but it's funny that, the last 2 members, Boomer and Chad, were 2 of the biggest personalities in Bengals history. I mean, just they are. If you think Bengals characters, and those 2 would be at the top of the list. Then you talk about Bengals tough guys. That's this class.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan and Crumry, holy God.
Yeah, you covered the team at that point, didn't you?
Yeah, and they both ate glass for breakfast. I mean, it was crazy. They were tough as nails. They really were. I mean, I don't know if I didn't see Jim Brown in person, but I don't know if anyone punished opponents. Maybe Bo Jackson at his prime and Earl Campbell. But, man, Corey ran over people too. I mean, he had speed, power. He ran angry. He ran mean. And Crumry played mean from that nose tackle position, and he looked like it too, with his ears beat up from wrestling, and his nose was crooked from getting broke so many. He always had that cut up here. I mean, he looked the part.
Looked like a boxer, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in his face, at least.
Yes. I remember I couple times I'd walk into a bar and he'd be standing at the end of the bar smoking this big cigar with this drink there. And I'm like, who would ever go up and screw with this guy? He'd have on these tight with cowboy boots and just look like he was ready to tear someone's head off. And I think he kind of loved that too.
Yeah, he liked that people didn't mess with him.
And he'd stand there like, yeah, I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Don't mess with me. No, thanks. Hi, Tim.
I know exactly what you mean. I feel like there's a few players in the Bengals locker room who were kind of like that also. And you're like,
oh, yeah. You always have to have tough. It's a tough sport, man. Got to have those tough guys.
Well, George, you're obviously going to watch the game on Monday, right? Are you going to be? Absolutely. You're not going to be on a golf course.
No. If this back doesn't straighten up, I don't know when I'll be on a golf course again. But yeah, I will be glued to that game. I don't know if I'm going yet or not. I still up in the air on that whole deal. But if not, I will probably be with some buddies somewhere. Maybe at my kid's bar, Remington Tavern. Maybe I'll go up there and watch it. I don't know. But I will be nose to television set watching that game and expecting a win.
And hopefully, no matter where you are, you're in a comfortable seat.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yes, I am hoping for that for you. George, thank you for joining me. I am thrilled that we got this little reunion. I've seen you so many times outside of, at sporting events, mainly basketball games, because we're always there. Right. But it's lovely to do this, talk sports with you again. Yes, on camera. It's a joy.
As well. And just call me when you need me.
Oh, I certainly will.
I got some time on my hands now.
I love it. Well, yeah. Wait, when do you getting your back stuff done? Is that November?
I think it's election day. November something. First week in November.
Dang, you're right at when basketball season starts.
I know. I don't know. They didn't act like it was going to be like a lot of restrictions on walking and going upstairs and all that. But it is like 6 months of not doing
golf,
physical activity. Yes, golf.
No
golf, bowling.
Yeah, no bowling for you.
The only benefit is I think it probably keeps me out of the gym for a while. So now I can, if I don't do cardio, I've got an excuse.
There you go. You can always come down and sit with us, although you will probably be roped into coloring something with one of the kids or.
Oh, that's okay. I do a lot of that anyway now I've almost gone full circle. I mean, the grandkids do stuff like that, but now I'm starting to, like I'm one of those old guys that's starting to act like a little kid again.
I love it. I bet they love that too.
What's that?
I bet your grandkids love that too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're probably the reason my back's the way it is, the way they jump on me.
That as a human play equipment or playground, you've got to have good back for that.
Yeah, they just don't get it yet.
George, you're the best. Thank you so much.
All right. Elise, great to talk to you. Have fun.
You too. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, G. All right. George Vogel, wonderful, wonderful human being. We broadcasted together for about 7 years in the city of Cincinnati. And yes, he is right. We broadcasted on a lot of losses for the Cincinnati Bengals, but this is certainly the new era. We do expect the Cincinnati Bengals to show up in primetime. The pressure is really on them at this point because, yes, the Bengals have started 0-2 the past now 3 years, but they have never started 0-3 in the past, in the Joe Burrow era. So, you know what? I am going to say that they will probably win on Monday night if they do what they are expected to do. I am interested to see how they stop the run. Defensively, I think Lou Anarumo is smart enough to dial everything in and create a productive game plan for the Washington Commanders. That game Monday night at 8:15. We will be there, of course, and we'll be talking about it the next week. Hit subscribe, hit the like button. That only helps us to grow this platform, grow this show a little bit more. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.